Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Yushafiza binti Rozaini and my metric number is 1191473. Today, I would like to share with you guys about one article about Islamic folk astronomy. When the Quran was revealed in 7th century Arabia as the basis for Islam, references were made to the sun, moon, and stars as evidence of the creative power and practical foresight of God. The idea that God, or a particular god or goddess, has created the visible heaven was not unique. Creating stories about astronomical phenomena is as old as the first civilization that appeared in the ancient Near East. Some of these survive in highly edited variants in the scriptures of Judaism and Christianity. As Muslim science evolved, a variety of religious and scientific knowledge from classical Greek texts, as well as Zoroastrian and Hindu sources, was encountered. While the influence of these classical and textual traditions on Islamic astronomy has been the focus of much previous study on the history of Islamic science, little attention has been paid to the oral folk traditions of people who embrace Islam. How ordinary Muslims viewed the same events visible to educated scientists or illiterate Stafford in the subject of this chapter. For practical reason, the focus here will be on the Middle East, especially the textual information on the pre-Islamic Arabs of the Arabian Peninsula and contemporary tribal groups in the regions. Okay, next we're gonna move to the what is Islamic folk astronomy. It is unfortunate that many times the idea of folk astronomy is understood mainly by what it is not. Astronomy as the formal science of the heavens is usually studied according to what historical texts record about astronomical phenomena. The birth of astronomy is said to begin with the early surviving documentaries of observations including Babylonians, ancient Egypt, Greece, India, and China. What hundred of earlier generation of ancestors is a genus Homo thought or said about stars is obviously not recorded. Similarly, how everyday people viewed the heavens throughout the history, civilization, and through the present is largely undocumented. It is ignored and usually dismissed as unscientific superstitions. A standard treatment of the history of Islamic astronomy would cover theories about the celestial sphere, solar and lunar theory, measurement of stars' movement, planetary theory, the extensive range of documentation and instrument. This formal astronomy assumes an evolving scientific tradition through translation and borrowing of ideas, as well as the occasional brilliant astronomer who could initiate a paradigm shift. All of this would seem to be as far removed from the ordinary person of any period in the Islamic era as quantum mechanics is to the man on the street today. But it is hard to imagine any individual or cultural tradition without ideas and stories about the same basic subject matter of suns, moon, stars, planets, eclipse, weather, and the like. The Arab of Muhammad they held theories about the stars, as we know both from the early Islamic texts which condemn some of this belief and from the surviving pre-Islamic poetry. As Islam spread across North Africa to southern Spain and across the Arabian Peninsula to Iraq, Iran, Central Asia, India, and beyond, it was received by hundreds of different ethnic groups with an extraordinary variety of both formal knowledge and oral folklore on astronomy. The fact that so little survive about this folk tradition does not mean that they were unimportant or lack influence on the evolving scientific tradition. Just because we do not have many texts out to study does not mean that we can never know anything about what ordinary people thought. Archaeoastronomical study in this century has established that much can be learned about the astronomy of ancient civilization from monuments and artifacts without resorting to texts. Ethnographic accounts of so-called primitive people show that there can be very sophisticated knowledge of the heavens even when people are not aware of modern science. A fundamental problem faced by those who collect oral folklore is knowing how authentic that how representative information is. One can easily sympathize with the traveler James Bramley among the Sinai Bedouin. Have inquired whether they had any legends or belief connected with the stars and planet, and was told one very clever man, a Turakban, could tell me much for he met up with himself. How many people need to share a belief before we can consider it an authentic cultural tradition? Far from delimiting Islamic folk astronomy to what we think we cannot know, it is important to examine comparative information from non-textual as well as textual sources in order to better understand that practical and esoteric views of ordinary Muslim from the 7th century to the present, and from Arabia to the farthest reaches from the sacred geographical focal point of Mecca in modern Saudi Arabia. And then, folk astronomy in Islamic is whatever Muslims thought about the heavens that the Quran indicates were created by God as a sign for anyone willing to understand. The Quran and tradition attribute to Muhammad did not outline a detailed formal astronomy, nor were Muslims required to abandon all the ideas that they already held about the subject. It was assumed that knowledge of the heaven was as old as mankind itself. Some through Adam names the stars Al-Mawarda, others that astrology was founded by early individual Enoch. And then, previous study of the folk astronomy of Islam has been fragmented. No systematic survey of the subject has been attempted. The most obvious place to begin is with the information about astronomy in the Quran and the traditions. Since these are the central texts shared by all Muslims, fortunately, several Muslim scholars have written treatises on what the Quran says about astronomy. Some, such as Ibn Qutaybah and Al-Marzaqah, provide information about the folk astronomy of the time. Specific information is available on the suns, moon, stars, planet, seasonal phenomena related to assumed astronomical influence, time, reckoning and calendars, and navigation on land and sea. Islamic ritual needed astronomy for determining the prayer time, the start of the fasting month of Ramadan, and the orientation of Mecca for determining the Qibla. Indeed, it appeared that early belief about Mecca as the spiritual center of Islam involved continuation of a pre-Islamic Arab cosmology centering on this spot. No survey about Islamic folk astronomy would be complete without consideration of what we generally call astrology, or the assumed occult influence of astronomical phenomena on the individual and society. This is all the more relevant in the early Muslim scholar condemned many uses of astrology and divination, yet at the same time certain forms of astrology, such as horoscope, were accepted both at the local level and by political leaders. I think this is all of the facts Islamic folk astronomy, and that's all from me. Thank you so much.